of all, everyone, I know I said that this is going to be less delayed than yesterday's episode of Unpopular Opinions, so I guess I'm going to have to apologize to the academic agent. I am much more boomerish than he is. We've had a ton of problems getting all this started, but finally, welcome to the episode 7 of the Rose Pill. And joining me tonight is Blaire White.
Hi.
And also Mars, who is one part of the podcast Transbro.
Hello.
So the idea behind the stream was ideally to be discussing being right-wing and being trans, but I'm sure every single person in the chat here must have watched a particular stream on Monday involving, well, one of the biggest characters in the whole fucking world at the moment, which is Jessica Yaniv. And we have the woman who managed to get Yaniv arrested right here.
I will say, I've done a lot of really intense debates, a lot of ugly debates. I've never had anyone arrested after a debate.
What I loved about that is it was Yaniv's own stupidity that caused it. Like, nobody demanded that they pull out a taser and then show it off and then tell everyone that it's actually illegal to have it. Like,
yeah, it's like, you're an idiot. And then did you hear, people weren't really talking about this as much, but what's really crazy is that yes, Yaniv was searched for the weapons and was arrested for the weapons, but Yaniv made a second call to the police on his own volition saying, someone sent me child porn.
Oh God, yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so right after the arrest for the taser, he contacted the police again to say, oh no, someone happened to have sent me child porn. It seems as if he's probably trying to cover his tracks a bit, right?
That's exactly what I thought. Like, what I think he's doing there, and fuck it, I'm just going to use he. I don't respect Yaniv at all. I don't even respect Yaniv as a human being, let alone as a trans person.
Yeah.
Like, what I personally think Yaniv is doing there is it's a way of saying, look, all this child porn that I had on my computer, it's not mine. You see, I keep on being sent it by people, but I just keep it here for evidence. I'm not being dodgy with it at all. And I think from studying Yaniv over the last couple of months, that seems like the kind of logic that he has with these kinds of things. He's not a very intelligent person at all. Like, all throughout that debate, the whole way he talked was of a village idiot. And he's really not. And you had to talk to him for like half an hour before the stream, making small talk.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, that's what a lot of people don't know, is that like I was so scared that he was gonna flake, because in my mind I was like, what reason would he even have to come on? Everyone hates him. I'm clearly going to like steamroll over him, right? So I was like, I'm sending the link like really early, so like almost 40 minutes early I sent the link. I was like, I'm gonna get this bitch like ample opportunity to join, right? And so for like 30 minutes, a little over 30 minutes, I had to talk about things. I had to talk about like where I'm from and where he's from. And I was being so fake though, to make sure they didn't leave out of anger. Like, he was talking about like hormones and surgery, and he's like, it just is so hard. I'm like, yeah, I feel you. Like, I totally agree. Like I was being really nice to him. And I even said, I was like, I want this to be a really productive conversation for our community. I was like, I want this to be helpful for trans people. And he was like, yeah. And I was
so is he actually on hormones?
I don't know. He had the package. I mean, like I said in the stream, I hope he is, because that would mean his sex drive is getting tanked, and that'd be good for him.
Yeah. Like, it seems like that'll be quite a bit of a deep dive for him. I mean, he only came out as trans, I believe, around 2017. Up until that point, everything was very much Jonathan Yaniv. And then even in 2018, his profiles online didn't even say Jessica. Like, everything on Trusted Nerd was Jonathan Yaniv. His Twitter was Jonathan Yaniv. His Facebook, Instagram, all of these have purchased followers, by the way. I mean, he's never had a substantial internet following until the last couple of weeks. It's
now.
Yeah, it's only when the publication ban was lifted. That's the only way he's got famous. And I think he probably quite enjoys that. I mean, I think a lot of it is him having power. He likes to try and exert power over people. And so when we see him like putting through these requests to, well, you know, stop people from talking about him, ban him, and all of that, that's him having some power for the first time in his life. Bear in mind, up until this point, his only success was Trusted Nerd, a website that nobody visits, and it's there purely to give him free stuff and to write about weird sexual fantasies. Like, I don't know if either of you have ever actually looked at Trusted Nerd and some of the things that he writes about. Oh God, he does sex toy reviews. Yeah. Which and everything gets a 5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5. The only one that he actually doesn't like is the one that's designed for a penis.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because it has things in it like, oh, there's been a lot of demand for me to review all these toys. And I'm just like there is literally no evidence anywhere of a single human being asking for you to review a vibrator, you absolute moral leper.
It's the same as like when he was tweeting, so people have been asking me to debate Blaire. No one was asking him. That was his own. That's the thing, is he's also very much like, he loves the attention. Like,
oh, absolutely.
He loves that he got to come on my channel. And so I did think about that. I was like, that's why it took me a few days to even respond to him calling me out, because I had to think about it. And I was talking to my fiance. I was like, do I really do this? Like, it's going to be like get a lot of attention and it's what he wants. But I was like, no, actually, it's more important that his name gets and his face gets blasted out there as a predator. If even one person from keeping their kids away from him, then it's worth it. So,
well, that's it. He's thick. He thinks that any kind of fame, and especially because it's blown up much bigger than he ever expected. I mean, he has real celebrities like Ricky Gervais talking about him. Like, this is the most relevant Jonathan, Jessica, whatever Yaniv will ever be in their life. Up until this point, they've been an abject failure at every single thing that they've tried. And it says a lot that someone is clamoring to be well known. And it is for some of the most degenerate shit that I've ever seen. Like, he's a horrifying individual. And so many people look at Yaniv just as a freak show because of the whole ball waxing thing. But even when you take into account the impact that's had on the women he's targeted, that's only scratching the surface. He's an incredibly dark individual. Like, I wonder. Sorry.
And like I said, kind of in the stream, I was like, and also just so everyone knows, thank you so much to you for sending me a lot of the receipts. Like an hour or two before the debate, I was talking to you through DMs and I was like, I just need more receipts, more evidence. And you sent me a lot of stuff from 2012, 2013, like I said in the stream. And it's like the fact that there is that type of stuff being said about him almost a decade ago, it's like that's kind of scary. That's a long time for someone to be out there like wreaking havoc. So yeah, that's very telling.
Well, and the thing with that is he will try and say that, well, you know, it's someone else, it's not me, but there is not a single motive for anyone else to do it.
No.
Like if Yaniv wants people to genuinely believe that these messages weren't him, and okay, it is technically possible that it is somebody else, but it's not plausible because there is no other reason for someone to do this. And he needs to demonstrate it. He's not. And it's really telling when his defense was, you can't prove it was me.
Yeah. It's not as if all those DMs and screenshots came out and video recordings came out like after he sort of in the media because of the waxing stuff. It's like that stuff is actually before.
Yes.
And like he said, his claim was that people have been faking him being predatory online for a decade. And it's like, what is the motive? Like, why? To me, it's much more realistic to expect that most, if not all of it, is real. Like, I'm willing to say that, like, maybe there are a couple that maybe people Photoshop because it's the internet. And now he is very famous or very known. But all those ones that came out beforehand, which are the freakiest ones,
yeah,
they're real. They're real.
Absolutely. And like the track record for him just goes back a long time. And it seems to be everything he does is involves sex in one way or another. Like the very first time he came onto the public stage, he tried to organize this, I think it's like National Sex Day in Canada, where the idea being that everyone has sex one day a year. Yaniv was saying this is a really healthy way to get out there, and everyone should be boning. It is probably a way for Yaniv to get laid. It's just as simple as that. But
he's a fetishist, clearly.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at the way he pulled out a pad, and he's just like, "Oh, well, why would I have a pad if I didn't have periods?" It's like, well, it's simple because you have a fetish.
When that happened, I couldn't even believe my eyes. That to me was more shocking than the taser. I was like,
really?
Really pull out a pad? And then his argument of like, why would I have these if I can't use them? It's like, that's like saying, why would I have like an XL Magnum condom if I don't have a huge dick? It's like people, just because you bought it doesn't mean you have for it.
Like, I can't believe you didn't expect that. Like in his when he's in court, when he has his mum in court with him, and the conversation is purely about the waxing. Yaniv always brings up, and like it seems to be every single time he gets a chance to talk, brings up periods, brings up tampons. Like the man is obsessed. You give him a single inkling for him to flash his fetish in front of the world, and he will do so. And he doesn't act like a rational human being. He is absolute. If you want to look at the way that how Yaniv has come about, it's purely through the way in which the trans community, in my opinion at least, has championed this whole self-ID, the whole idea that there is an open border on gender, that anyone can self-identify. That's literally it. And what you end up with is you have people like Jonathan Yaniv, you have people like Karen White, who is a rapist in the UK, who was jailed, then sent to a women's prison because he decided he was now a woman, where he then raped a number of women in the prison. And all of this stuff is because of self-ID, because you lower the barrier for transitioning. It's no longer enough to just take your hormones, have surgeries, do things so people, not just that you're happy with the way that you look, but people respect you and they will look at you and think, that is maybe trans or whatever, but that is a woman, that is a man, that kind of idea. But self-ID gets rid of that. Self-ID is just, well, I say that I am a woman. This is a woman's body. Yeah. I have women's balls. Like, it's bullshit.
That's what I meant by, a lot of people got very upset when I sort of called the trans community to action of condemning this. But for me, it's like, it wasn't as much like I said, Susie from Walmart, who happens to be trans, condemning it that I wanted. Like, I don't care about that. To me, it was more of like, these laws did not just come about in a vacuum, right? There was activists, there were commentators, there were public figures, there were celebrities that are trans that spoke up, that like really pushed these laws to be put in place, right? And so for me, they pushed these laws and didn't care that there was these types of loopholes that enable people like Jessica Yaniv. So now you have to answer for it. You have to talk about this, So it was more public figures that I wanted to speak out, just because I think a lot of them led to this. And the difference between self-ID laws in Canada and the US is, I mentioned it in the stream, was that like, to become legally another gender here, you have to have doctors oversee your transition, sign off, you have to go to court, you have to petition. It's a lot of stuff. And because of that higher bar of entry, you don't really see that type of thing happening here. Whereas in Canada, you put it in a great way, open borders on gender, that's what it is.
And yet that's the way that people in the UK are pushing for it to be as well. Like last year we had there was like, I can't remember what the exact wording is, but there's something called the Gender Recognition Act, which is what allows a trans woman to be legally recognized as a woman. And there is pushes from the trans community to make that process easier, where it wouldn't be a case of collecting doctor's notes or proof of how long you've lived as that gender or anything to really demonstrate that you're genuinely serious about changing your identity and changing your identity in a very fundamental way. Instead, they want it to just be, you can go down to a county court and then sign your gender away to get a new one, with no idea of how often you can change your gender. Is it just, could you do it on a weekly basis? Like, that might sound ridiculous, but there are people within the queer community who genuinely do change their gender on a weekly basis. I've come across these people. Hell, I've come across someone who has gone from being a woman to an NB, to a man, to an NB, to a man again, to the planet Jupiter. And this is, and so are we really going to be serious about saying that this person can flippantly change how everyone is supposed to recognize them? Because that's what a lot of this is. It's the state telling people that they have to recognize someone as this when there is no barrier anymore, where it encourages laziness. Like Yaniv said it in the stream about when you called him out about like his treatment of, say, like someone on the phone, whether it's like, oh, well, you sound like a man, so they're going to call you a man. And then Yaniv is just like, well, why do I have to change? And that says it all to me.
Yeah, that was like, that was my favorite part. Like when Yaniv said, why do I have to change? That literally is probably 90% of the problem in the trans community, is that we're a me community where we expect like everybody to just like bend over backwards because, hey, suddenly we're transsexuals or whatever. And it's just like, that's not realistic. I mean, and it's so self-entitled. Like, I hate being attached to a community that's so self-centered. You know what I mean? Like, it's like everything revolves around me. And if you don't cave in, then, well, you're transphobic or it's discrimination or some shit. And sorry, could I say shit in here?
Yes. Like this is going to get demonetized no matter what.
All right. So yeah, like I can't stand that, you know, and it's like this idea where we're just entitled because we're transsexuals or transgender or whatever. And that's not how it is, because there's other people that have their rights or their religious rights or whatever you call it. And it's like suddenly we just expect the world to just stop traffic because, hey, there's a transgender coming. Like, it's just stupid.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think it's such a wild expectation that there's a certain amount of assimilation that, you know, transsexuals and trans people should have and should do, right? Like, when you are 0.001% of the population, whatever the stat is, there are no real stats on like the trans population. There's no, we're not in the census in the US at least, but when you're that small of a fraction of people, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm sorry, but it's not reasonable to expect that 99.9999% of the population bends over backwards for you. And it is reasonable to expect kindness because, you know, trans people are not inherently evil. Jonathan is, but not trans people, right?
Yeah.
You can expect a basic level of kindness and respect, but when it comes to all this other shit, it's like, you know, there's a certain amount of assimilation that should be done. And I will say I actually have the exact opposite problem of Jessica, when he talked about the phone thing and how people would hang up because they're looking to speak to Jessica but heard a male voice. I remember growing up as a teenager and my voice was always like this, and so I had my birth name, which is obviously a male name.
Yeah.
People were looking to call me and I'd be like, hello, and I'd sound like that, and they'd be like, oh no, I'm looking to speak to my birth name. And I'm like, this is, and they would hang up on me. And it didn't make me like hate the world. I mean, sure, I found it annoying, but I realized that like I should probably change my name and gender legally then to avoid this problem. So I worked on me, because there's something to be said about helping yourself, fixing yourself. And that's often like, I don't even know what you guys identify as politically, but I'm on the right. And when I find that one of the fundamental differences between the right and the left, for the most part, not everyone, obviously, that there's just more of a sense of like personal investment and responsibility, right? That I find, and on the left, I tend to find that it's more so, what can the world do for me?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So the way in which I've always seen it is the right being individualism, the idea that you take responsibility for yourself. With the left, it's always collectivism. And that's where whenever you look at a collectivist ideology or collectivization in general, it always comes from the left. The idea that everybody, why should I do anything when everybody else can do it? And that always leads to the downfall of left-wing states. I mean, look at the likes of every single time socialism's been tried or collectivization, it's always because these people don't have any self-responsibility. Because why do they need to? It's everybody else's problem. And you see this with the trans community, clearly. Like, it used to be a case of, well, if you're transitioning, you need to be putting in the effort because people are not going to treat you as a woman if you look like a trucker, basically. And now it's like, well, this is a woman's body. So you need to change the way you think of a woman. We need to redefine what it means to be a woman so we can fit these people in here. And hell, you even see it with just being trans in general. And there's a dog.
That's my dog.
That's okay. But we see it with just being trans in general. Sorry, the dog just completely threw me. I was just in a train. Okay, so so when we see it with being trans, like even when we're looking at the way that the trans community is, it used to be a transsexual, you needed to be on the hormones, having the surgeries. Like, I know that having like bottom surgery is one where there's always going to be a bit of contesting. That's not something which I ever feel is you have to have it done, because I know with trans guys, it's a really complicated procedure. And with trans women, there can be a genuine reason as to why somebody isn't going to go through that. But the idea is you at least make as much effort as you can. So not only do you feel happy with yourself, but when society sees you, they will treat you in the way that you would like. I consider it almost like a social contract. You can't expect someone to treat you like a woman if you look like Jonathan Yaniv, because it's sloppy.
It's like, just not realistic, right? And it's not even like, I totally agree. And in saying that, it's not even that I'm making a statement of like, should society see someone this way or not? It's more of like, it's unrealistic to expect them to, right? You can't walk into a men's restroom dressed completely as male, presenting as male, but just happen to have an F on your ID. And so you think that that's okay. It's like, it doesn't really work like that, especially like living in Canada. There's probably plenty of unisex bathrooms that Jessica could be using, right? But those don't really fill his fetish, so he doesn't use them. Yeah.
No, and he says that, well, he has to use them because, you know, it's illegal for him not to use them. And I somehow doubt that is the case. Like, even with self-ID laws, I somehow doubt in Canada, if someone hasn't already legally changed their gender, that they're going to be arrested for going into, quote unquote, the wrong bathroom, especially when you are someone who, up until very, very recently, called themselves Jonathan Yaniv, and everything about their profile was Jonathan. It's literally this year. In fact, a couple of months ago, I did a video on Yaniv. It's called like the Pillars of the Community, and that involved a lot of research on him. And it was whilst I was researching that video that his profiles changed from Jonathan to Jessica. So we're talking about March.
Wow.
It was literally whilst I was doing it, because it was one day I forgot, I need to take some screenshots. I went back and they were all Jessica. And it's the same thing with the Trusted Nerd website. It was up until very recently that was all Jonathan. And then he seems to have gone back through every article and then changed it to Jessica. You can still see traces of it in a lot of his other websites. He's only done it very soon. And I think a lot of that is because of that court case where it was like, he's going to get called out on not living full-time as a woman. Like,
so you think that he went into these places presenting completely as a man and like went by Jonathan, but then when he got rejected, then he said, "Oh, I'm trans," as a response to that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I think he's doing a lot of that to just kind of cover his tracks. I think that's what a lot of that is. And it's going to be very interesting to see the end of the court process, because I think in any realistic court, he would lose outright. Like, I don't know whether either of you have seen any of the court logs that have ever come out.
I know he was very confident in the stream. He was like, "I'll be winning all of them."
No. Well, he's a moron. He's a complete moron. He doesn't understand what he's doing. He's getting battered down in court every single day. So if he wins, which there is a possibility, I don't think it's likely in a competent court, but if he wins, that is terrifying. And that tells me there's something systematically wrong. There will be someone high up saying that, "Oh, we've got to let the trans women's win this one. It's very important." It'll be someone virtue signaling. And, you know, that is when Canada is lost. That's when Canada is lost to absolute degeneracy.
You know, it's so sad. Like, I guess I kind of feel like a bit of a broken record, but it's like genuinely sad that this Jessica Yaniv shit will likely haunt the trans community for a very long time.
Yes.
Like, the trans community at large's inability to even acknowledge or speak about it, and the fact that it's just like it's every fear-mongering justification that's ever been used against us, right?
It is.
And that's really upsetting to me. And so I'm glad that we've made the videos that we've made. And to anyone who's coming into this stream from my Twitter or my Instagram, like, please hit the subscribe button while you're here on Rose of Dawn, just because, you know, because she actually made those videos before I did. So if you're under any misconception that I was the first one to talk about it, actually she was. And so I'm glad, but why do you think that no one else has spoken up? The only person on the left that has spoken up, I think, is Kat Black. And her entire video was basically making herself the victim. Like, I can't believe people want me to talk about this.
Oh, well, of course it would be Kat Black doing that, because that's all she ever does. And that's all a lot of the left ever know what to do. Almost their entire ideology is based around victimhood, oppressors and the oppressed. And when you base yourself entirely as a victim, it's hard to take any kind of responsibility. And we're seeing that a lot with the way that people are responding to Yaniv. And look at the big names who are being absolutely silent. Like, I don't know so much about who the big name American activists are, but in the UK, we have people like Munro Bergdorf, who is, well, she's a racist, first and foremost. She absolutely hates.
She's psycho.
She is insane. And so she's not said a word as far as I know. Neither is Paris Lees. Neither of any of the people who are constantly being dragged on morning TV to be a mouthpiece for our community. And because I think a lot of this is because to acknowledge the likes of Yaniv completely destroys some of their central arguments about what they see as trans rights. They have such a weird, when it comes to collectivist views, you have to live in absolutes. This group is harmful, this group isn't. You see them practicing that all the time with their whole, well, it's fine to punch up, but don't you dare judge us. And you will often hear narratives like, oh, trans women will never attack people in a bathroom. It just won't happen. You'll never see people taking advantage of self-ID. You know, this is alt-right fear-mongering. So when you have someone who is a clear example of what's been like, you know, what that criticism is, to acknowledge it, because your argument is based on the absolute that particular group is flawless, you have to come up with a new argument, because you've been proven wrong. And you can't move. If you start moving the goalposts, it's just going to fall down, because you then can't be like, well, okay, I know I said that all trans people are perfect, but it turns out that some of them aren't, because then you're just going to open up to, well, actually, I think most of them are dangerous. And you've already kind of backed that up. But their arguments are generally crap. And a lot of it is just based around emotion. It's just based around the idea of, well, you know, we're oppressed. And like, okay, so this person might have done something wrong, but you know, we shouldn't really be focusing on it too much, guys, because this is just going to encourage bigotry against trans people. Like, as an example of, like, not so much from the trans community, but a couple of weeks ago I believe it was somewhere in the UK, it might have been Leeds, there was a pride parade, and there was a Muslim woman wearing a niqab shouting abuse at the protesters, calling them, like, you know, like all sorts of like nasty things, was actually being homophobic. But then when I saw some of the reporting in the gay press, they ignored the woman's religion up until, like, there was in Gay Star News, as an example, website's now shut down. But when they covered it, they didn't mention a woman's religion. It's like a woman shouts shocking abuse at gays. But then as soon as they did have to mention that she was a Muslim, straight away they were like, oh, but because the woman is Muslim, there's fears that this is going to cause a lot of Islamophobia. So we need to make sure, guys, that we're not Islamophobic, okay? Don't criticize someone for being a Muslim. And it's like, where the hell did that angle come from? Like, the reason why she shouted abuse was motivated by her religion. But you're saying that we can't talk about that because you got the idea that, well, all of these people are perfect. And
absolutely. That's why I'm sorry, but no one can tell me that the right is far from perfect on trans
Yes.
issues, and I have my contentions with that, and I call it out where I need to. And part of that was with this Jessica Yaniv saga on my channel. Part of that was calling out the people using that to paint us with a brush. However, you're not going to convince me that the left is some like savior of trans people when, in my opinion, they are just as bad. In my opinion, they opened the door for Jonathan Yaniv to happen, which makes us look bad, which was the worst thing for trans rights in a very long time, if not ever. And they have this unholy alliance with Islam.
Yes.
The story you just told me is a prime example of leftist media prioritizing an ideology that wants gay people dead over gay people. Like, think about that. Like, if you're ever, not you, but just people, if you're ever confused as to that, it's like, that's what that is. You know what I mean? Because in their hierarchy of privilege and of oppression, brown people come at the very top, right? And in their small, simplified, toddler-like view of the world, Muslim equals brown person. Never mind the fact that like anyone of any race can be a Muslim, and there are people of every race that are Muslims, right? But that's what that is. And so that's a very good example of the unholy alliance between Islam and the left. And that's why,
it's pretty racist in itself to assume that every Muslim is not white. So
one would think, but the left is apparently incapable of racism because racism is a form of oppression, and the left doesn't oppress anyone ever because it's always been a bastion of freedom with such leaders as Chairman Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot. Brilliant. But the whole progressive stack, which is where all of this comes from, is absolutely real. And there is a hierarchy of who is more oppressed than the other. And one of the things that I find interesting with the way that the left in particular treats like people like trans people or LGBT or black people or whatever is the way in which they claim to speak for us and for our ideology and say that we are the defenders. We're the ones. We're not the ones who are going to be putting you in camps. The right is going to put you in camps. And even like I've spoke to a fair few left-wing people, and they do have this genuine belief that the right is willing to, they want to throw us all in extermination camps. When really the left wants to do that, but for ideology, it seems. Like how many times I can guarantee every single person, like all three of us, how often have we got abuse purely despite the fact that these are from people who say that never abuse trans people, always be respectful.
Yeah, that's what I said. I did a podcast yesterday where the person asked me, like, where do you get the majority of your hate mail from? Is it from like conservatives who just hate you for being trans, or is it from like liberals who hate you because you're a Republican? And I was like, no lie, 95% of the hate mail, the death threats, the abuse, the insults I get online are from liberals.
Yeah.
So that's why when people try to screw in my ear about how I'm like, involved with people who hate me, it's like, how can you tell me that when like literally my lived experience is literally liberals hating me overwhelming majority of the time?
Well, like I've had a lot more accepting experiences since kind of coming out as being on the right. And from a lot of the people who I've associated, like YouTubers, I can name quite a few who I've had discussions with for being trans. And some of these people have been labeled transphobic. Like, for example, Count Dankula, he's a good friend of mine. And I've seen him repeatedly being labeled as, like an alt-right transphobic bigot. Like, no, the guy's a teddy bear. And like Sargon's another one, academic agent, Britisher, like lots of different people I've had conversations with, and they can have their disagreements with what it means to be trans or anything like that. That's entirely fine, but they respect me as a individual. They are willing to hear me out. They're willing to be respectful. They don't have to believe that, a trans woman should be considered a woman or anything along those lines. I'm not demanding that from them. All I'm demanding is that I want to be treated with what I see as respect. And I get that from them all. I've only met one person on the right who genuinely hated me for being trans. Just one. And so many people have been, like, they're cool with it. They don't care. It's just, what do you believe? They're more interested in what your belief is and in having a discussion about it. Whereas with the left, it's so pure. The idea that if you are trans, you need to be, in the UK especially, and in queer circles, you need to be a socialist.
Yeah.
You need to be, and like anything anything to the right of socialism all of a sudden is, oh, well, now you're alt-right. Now you're a centrist where you only think that half of the tranners should be killed. Like, they have these really ridiculous beliefs. And when you are trans and right-wing, their whole rhetoric of protect trans people goes right out the window, because now you are less than scum to them. You're seen as a traitor because the left believes they own you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that they don't want to talk to us. So it's like they want to make all these assumptions about like who we are just because we don't agree, which is what pisses me off more than anything is like, okay, so yeah, I lean on the right. I mean, do you want to ask me why that is? Because I could probably give you a few reasons, but instead they have this idea, most people on the left, at least, they have this idea that anybody on the right is like this boogeyman that's going to just eat them alive. And it's not true, and I haven't had any encounters, and maybe I'm just lucky, but I haven't had any encounters with somebody that's right leaning, causing me any harm or hate. But on the opposite side, I've gotten bullied, and I gotten, a bunch of people would fearmonger me when I used to live in a city about how all my rights are going to be taken away once Trump got elected. And it's like, my life has been just fine. So like, could you stop trying to make me live in fear for no fuck? I keep trying not to cuss. Sorry.
You can swear. Like, again, I think that the video is likely demonetized anyway. So,
but it's just super
frustrating. Demonetized. Everyone should give Rose super chats. It's going to get demonetized.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not sure whether like this video's been demonetized or something. Like, I don't know whether super chats can even come through on it. I don't remember selecting anything. You
can get super chats on demonetized, so feel free, everyone.
Which, going back to the Jessica thing, I don't know if you saw, but Cat Black had asked like if anybody on the left had reached out to Jessica, and it's like,
no,
it's moments like that blows my mind, because people like Kat, I don't think she's dumb or anything like that, and I don't have any hate towards her, but it's like, you are so stuck in your little bubble that you don't even realize how obvious it is why nobody would reach out to somebody like Jessica. It's like, and you even answered it yourself when she was getting apparently shit because Blaire spoke out. She responded with like, I don't know, a freaking paragraph on how white men don't have to, announce like pedophiles that are, and it's like, dude, like, you just answered your own question. It's so in your face. How are you so blind?
Cat Black is an idiot. Honestly, I'm comfortable saying Cat Black is an idiot. She was live tweeting about the debate between me and Jessica, and the majority of what she had an issue with in that stream, I'm not even kidding, there were like just as many, if not more, tweets on the live thing about the video was about how I was like so full of myself, and I just thought it was so hot, and I had to keep bringing it up. And if you watch that video, it's mentioned twice, the whole "I'm hotter than you" thing, and it's because I was clowning Jessica for spending 2 days calling me like ugly or less attractive on Twitter.
Yeah,
and it took up probably 15 seconds of an hour and a half video. But because Kat is so transparently hateful towards me, right? The majority of her rant about the video was on that 15 seconds of me joking that I'm hotter than Jessica Yaniv. It's crazy. Like, Jessica, like, I mean, Kat is truly an idiot, and even to this day, Kat still tweets like, "Does anyone see how harmful it is to expect trans people to apologize?" It's like, it's not about. Listen, the world is not fair, and something that has historically plagued gay people and trans people is this misconception and this horrible stereotype and this horrible lie that we are somehow affiliated with or are pedophiles. And if you're not willing to stand up to that lie that harms us so much, that is the ultimate thing that harms us, right? Like, any chance that people can get to paint us as predators, they will. So as a trans activist, if you're not willing to stand up to that lie, do not call yourself a fucking trans activist. But the truth of it is that a Cat Black is not a trans activist. Cat Black is not in the business of converting transphobes or people or teach them about being trans. Cat Black is in the business of telling people who already respect trans people to respect trans people. And when I say that, what I mean is every single person who watches Cat Black's videos already is fine with trans people.
Yeah.
So she's not doing any difference in the world. And she had an opportunity to, but she spent the majority of it having an issue with me joking that I was hotter than Jessica Yaniv rather than calling out the fucking pedophilia in the Jessica Yaniv story.
And like, you know what? I think that I saw a load of people giving you shit for that, but you know, even if you were like just saying it almost as a joke, I kind of agree with you in that your experiences as a trans person is going to be completely different from Yaniv, because not all transitions are equal. Some people transition better than others. And I think that's fair to recognize. And okay, I'm saying that as someone, I know on my comments, I get people who say I look great, but I get a lot of angry trans activists who really pick over my appearance and will, you know, because they know what to go for. I don't ever say that I am like a particularly stunning person, but there is always that thing of you putting in that effort. And some people are naturally going to look better. If you wait until like your mid to late 30s or older, your transition is most likely going to look like a piece of shit, because you're going to already be having lived as a man for so long that you're going to be huge. Like, this is whenever you see these people wearing like muumuus, like Yaniv does, and you get transitioners who do that, and like their transition is not the same as mine, where I took things easy. I worked on every little thing. Like, my voice was awful. And like when you had Yaniv saying, oh, well, I'm not going to work on my voice, I shouldn't have to. I'm thinking like, fuck you. The amount of time I spent years on my voice. Like, I had to change the pitch of it constantly to try and get it to sound normal, because I went from having a really, really deep voice to a really, really high-pitched one. And like, that took effort. And these people just don't care. Like, and that makes me question whether they are trans. It does. Because if you really are, why don't you care about your appearance? Why do you want to look like a troll?
Yeah, every trans person I've ever met in my life, like, cares at least somewhat about their presentation and their behavior, because gender dysphoria fuels our insecurity about that presentation, that behavior. So it seems to me, obviously I'm not a doctor, obviously I'm not inside Jessica Yaniv's head, wouldn't want to be, but from an outside perspective, it seems like there's no dysphoria going on at all. It just seems like a fetishist.
Yeah.
And I said that in the stream, I was kind of like, I can't relate in any way. And honestly, going back to, every trans person I've ever met, I can relate to them in some way, right? Like I just spoke to you in person today, right?
Yeah.
And I feel a connection with you because we have sort of like a common history, right? Not everyone is the same. Obviously, we're very different people, but we have that one thing that it's like, I get you, I see you.
Yeah.
And same with you, Mars. When I went on your podcast, it was very comfortable because I was like, I feel you. Like, we went through sort of the same thing. Right. With Jessica Yaniv, can any trans people relate to what the fuck is going on there? I don't think so. And I think that's worth stating.
It is. And this is another thing where you see the trans community coddling each other. And it seems almost taboo to condemn people for how rough they look, when I think that tough love in a way is needed. Because I look at what I looked like when I first transitioned, and Jesus Christ, I wish my friends had said something. Like, I looked bad. Like, I was overweight. I had a poor taste in clothes. Like, I was never wearing stupid dresses or anything. It was mostly t-shirts and jeans. Still looked dumb. Like, I can't look at any of my early transition pictures, but I worked on myself and I got to where I am now. And I think that the way I dress is normal. Like, I like my current style, but we need to be told these things, that maybe you are looking a little bit like Shrek, and then you need to be realistic about it as well, because some of them get delusions of that, oh, actually they are a stunning woman and everyone wants to go and sleep with them, when really no, like and you often see this with the older transitioners. Like, younger transitioners have their shit together in general. Like, I don't come across many rough young transitioners. It's the older ones. And I do kind of ask questions a little bit about what took you so long in the first place to transition. Like, a friend of mine is an actress called Talisa Garcia, and she transitioned when she was about 18. And so, she's now around 48. So she transitioned around the time I was born. Hell, if she could do it then, why are these people waiting until they're about 50 or 60? Like, how have they been able to live with themselves all of this time. And a lot of them have got married, and a lot of them have kids. And if you notice, a lot of these late transitioners are still with their wives. They still see themselves as lesbians.
I was just gonna say, I don't think I've ever, make of it what you will, but I don't think I've ever seen a late transitioner, we're talking like 35, 40 plus, who is attracted to men. They're all attracted to women. Why?
They are.
Why?
All of them are.
Because it's a fetish.
I think I'm starting to, like, I don't want to go down that whole, I don't want to start going down the whole autogynephilia route, because I know some people think that's controversial, but.
It's so nice to just be able to speak about this and just be like honest.
But I did want to talk about something, since you guys are kind of on this topic, which has been bothering to me. I've noticed you guys get a lot of shit. Like, okay, you both were on Benjamin Boyd. If you look at the comments there are, whatever you want to call them, gender critical, radical feminists. I don't care what you want to call them, whatever you want to call them. On there, they will just destroy you because, God forbid, you're too feminine and it's a performance.
Oh, yeah.
So, but on the flip side, when it's a transsexual woman who is a transsexual woman apparently, or a transgender woman, but prefers to be referred to as he, him, they don't get really any shit on, their looks or anything. And so, like, my question, I don't know if it's a question. Well, I think it is. But my point is like, I don't understand, because I get really involved in all these debates, and I understand some of the concerns that some people have on the whole gender debate. But at the same time, it's like they act as if we are all just, this isn't a show. Like, we're all just performing. This is, you put on makeup and you become somebody else. And I don't think it's like that. I can't relate to your experience, being super feminine, but like for me, like, I don't, I'm not trying to be anything that I don't feel that I already am. And so it's really frustrating that even when you transition and you pass a lot, you're getting shit from trans people for passing too much. You're getting shit from people that are gender critical because it's a performance. It's like, give me some breathing room here, for fuck's sake,
Yeah. So, like, I've seen, just to comment on the gender critical thing, like, I've seen a lot more reasonableness on that side, because whilst I make it very clear my content is never aimed at the gender critical crowd, I do know that I have quite a bit of a following, and I've chatted to a lot of these people, and some of them can be reasonable. However, there are some huge hypocrites on that side, people who love to tell people not to label them, but they will happily label trans people. Like, I don't know whether either of you have heard of terms like TIM, like trans-identified male or trans-identified female. Like, they'll use that, but then say, don't call us cis, don't call us TERFs or anything, but y'all are Tims, and if you don't like that, then you hate women and girls. Simple as that.
Here's the real truth. It just goes down to the basic fact that, like, and this is not a blanket statement, this is far from all or even most, honestly, but there are some women, there is a certain percentage of women, it's not most, it's not all, but some women who are very threatened by trans women.
Oh, yeah.
That's just the truth.
Yeah.
Whether because they have an experience where maybe they were dating someone and they found trans porn on their computer, or maybe they don't feel comfortable with the way they look and they see trans women who look better and they can't really figure that out in their own head. They're like, how is that even possible that that person was born male but somehow presents better than me? That is a fact. And the only way they can rationalize it is by saying, oh, it's all a performance. It's not real. It's just an actor. And that makes me realize that person's an actor. When in reality, I think I speak for a lot of trans women. I don't know the trans male perspective, but like for me, like I had people asking me why I was so girly when I was in kindergarten. Is that a performance? Not really. It seems as if that's probably like innate, right?
Yeah.
So there, just as there are trans women who are threatened of biological women, there are biological women threatened of trans women. Yeah. Especially out here in LA, where there are like a lot of trans women. Like it's like a thing, and that's just the reality.
Yeah.
And like I do think that I can understand some people having concerns about the way that trans women can go about. And when you see the trans activists on Twitter are using very violent language, it really does kind of help build up their case that, well, actually, a lot of these people are just men pretending to be women because they hate women. Like, and you never see the big name activists calling this out. They'll always refer to it as like a meme or something. Like, no, it's just a meme, guys. But like, these are the same people who are triggered by Pepe's. Like, it seems to be fine if you just have like a death threat to someone, but if it's a Pepe, like, oh, that's pushing it a little bit too much. That's a bit too spicy. Like, there's such a double standard when it comes to the way in which these kinds of people talk. Like, I have disagreements with a lot of gender critical points, but I rarely see them issuing death threats to people.
Right. I agree on that for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I just find that, but yeah, there is always a bit of a frustrating side that I have with all sides of this debate. There's too many people who treat this as more of a, like, everyone is an extreme. And it's, again, turning back to the topic, a lot of this is the left fighting each other. Like, the gender critical side is mostly socialist. The queer trans activist side, a lot of those certainly have Marxist leanings. And when you actually look at what a lot of their beliefs are, they are very much close to communists. They are, but they naturally think that, you know, communism has never been tried. So, you know, like they'll get it right this time. But you have movements like the National Union of Students, who has a trans campaign. Now, you would think that the trans campaign is, you know, campaigning on what is actual trans issues. Instead, what they focus on are things like prison abolition. Yeah. Like, that's a communist point. And they use that as just like, well, this is a trans issue. And so you just have these two sides of the left fighting each other, but naturally they blame the other side for being a fascist, being right wing. And so it's kind of fascinating in a way to just kind of sit back and watch them both have at it, because it's like, well, I don't have a lot of skin in this because ideologically I disagree with both of you. I don't think that socialism is the way forward.
Absolutely. Do you ever feel like, I don't know, do you have one thing, like, as far as like being trans and being right wing, like, do you guys ever feel almost like, not politically homeless, but like, just like, do you ever feel like everyone's a fucking idiot? Because sometimes I like literally will log on and I'll be like, okay, all the trans people are being stupid today. And then I'll be like, okay, all the trans people are being stupid today. And I'm like, great, I'm both of those things. So it's like, it's frustrating, you know?
It's hard. I think it's quite hard to get involved in a party political level. Because in the UK, if you have a look at some of the parties that are around, particularly ones that lean on the right, when it comes to trans women, they're not exactly, in terms of what their own doctrines are, they're not the most open to someone as a trans woman actually kind of being a member and really getting involved. And so but the only ones that would actually kind of champion it in a way, and I don't really want them to champion it, to be quite honest. I don't want them to have any views on it at all. Like, ideally, I would like to go into a party that is completely neutral on the issue, because to me, it shouldn't be a political talking point.
Me too.
It is, frustratingly. And the only ones that are really saying, oh, like, you know, we accept it, are the ones on the left who are very, very hyper, every single gender is valid. And they group us all in with the NBs who identify as the moon, because that's what you do nowadays. It's all valid. You have these all-women shortlists, which I generally disagree with anyways. I'm someone that thinks that it shouldn't matter what you are. It should be based on, are you the best person for the job? But if you're going to have all these all-women shortlists, maybe don't open them up to anyone who then just says, I'm a woman. I'm now on this list, because that is what happens in the UK. You have people like Eddie Izzard who now decides every now and then that he is going to be a she, and now she can apply for all of this stuff. Like, it can feel very alien, but when you talk to people on an individual level, that's when I find that there's the sanity. I think as an individual, people can be very, very accepting, and especially on the right. Like, they might not understand, but they will at least try. And if they can see that you're saying something, they will respect it. But then when you come to the collective, that's when it becomes a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. And I was in an interview yesterday where they were talking about, like, do you ever see it as hypocritical to be right-wing and be trans and all that stuff? And I was like, no, not really, because the only way that you would think that it's hypocritical is if you expect trans people to vote solely on the basis of them being trans and solely on the basis of trans issues. And when I think about my life and the things I care about, it's like, what if I care about national defense more, or immigration more, economy more, or like any of the state measures that I have to vote on, like. And then you think of like all the thousands of policies we're expected to make like decisions on, and there's probably like 6 trans policies a year, every 3 years. In what world am I supposed to base my entire political identity on? Like voting on trans shit? It's like that doesn't make sense to me. You know, I'd rather sort of work towards like carving out a space for trans people on the right-wing side than like completely abandoning all of my right-wing principles because I'm trans.
Yeah. And even if you did that, you would find yourself very quickly bending the knee to their more extreme rhetoric anyway. You'd quickly be, no matter what, you have to sell yourself out if you're joining the left at this point. The second you stop with that ideological purity, it's the wolves. The wolves are set on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, okay, say I'm a liberal now. That's not enough for leftists.
No.
It's not.
Well, you have your history. You have your history. And so,
first you have to apologize.
Well, even if you apologize.
Well, yeah.
You have your history, and if you don't agree with every single minute position, then you are a Nazi. Like, so I am very comfortable in not voting to allow, I'm talking about the US here, but I'm very comfortable in not voting blue because I don't feel comfortable with that party even being in power right now.
Oh God. Yeah. Like if I was in America now, like for me, the only hope the Democrats have is Tulsi Gabbard. Like literally she is the only person on the Democrats that I would realistically vote for.
And naturally she'll get no further traction because they're already doing the hit pieces. It's already all of a sudden.
She's now right wing, apparently, as though that's a bad thing. Like they always throw these shit out as though, well, that therefore is bad. Like, how is that bad? Like, they never seem to say that when you throw around left wing. Like left wing, but then they see left wing as morally good, right wing as morally bad. Like when you look at their arguments about centrists, it isn't just like someone sitting on the fence so much, but it's you have one side saying, well, I want to kill everyone, the other side saying, oh, we just want freedom. And then the centrist is like, well, just kill half of the people. But like, if I was in America next election, I would easily vote Trump. Very easily vote Trump. Like, because they're just nobody, like the left, or the Democrats need to get their act together. They're not. You would hope that they would have learned from 2016. They haven't.
No, it got more extreme.
Yeah, they've got worse. They're now the party of people like AOC or Ilhan Omar or all of those who hold quite extreme positions. They're not willing to condemn the violence that their side is doing. I mean, I don't know whether they've spoke about the Antifa shooter over the weekend, but they certainly didn't comment on the firebomber. When they were asked directly about it, they refused to condemn, despite the fact that this person used the same rhetoric that AOC used about these ICE centers being like concentration camps.
Yep. And it's not even that like I support everything Trump does and says.
Absolutely. The guy's a moron on a lot of things.
Yes, there are policies I agree with very much and that I enjoy and that have positively affected my life. And there are some that I don't agree with. And there are things he says I don't agree with. Like the other day going on about how video games need to be looked for shootings. And then, when he goes into the whole like American flags, people should be deported. And then it's like that kind of stuff just goes against my core principles in terms of freedom of speech. And he said something about how social media networks need to be held responsible to sort of pinpoint shooters before they are created or it happens. And social media already has way too much power to like pick people off and people they view as extremists. Why hands over power? Yeah. So I don't like everything Trump says at all. But it's a rock and a hard place because I'm also highly uncomfortable with the left having even an iota of power right now.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel. I mean, and I mean, just to sum it up really easily, like anybody ever wonders why a trans person would vote for the right, it's because you guys are fucking radical and crazy. Like just tone it down about like 90% and maybe I'll consider it. But until they tone it down, I mean, I have nothing to give to that side. Because people are bullying anybody that has a different opinion. So why would I want that? And it is basically borderline communism, which I also don't want. You know what I mean?
A lot of them are. I mean, look at the Labour Party in the UK. You have former members of the Communist Party, like as a part of, well, you know, Corbyn's team, as an example. And you have people like John McDonnell, who's the shadow chancellor, who's openly talked about how Tory MPs should, you know, when he gets in power, Tory MPs should be rounded up and arrested and put on trial for their so-called crimes of basically implementing policies that Labour disagreed with. Like that kind of shit is terrifying.
Yeah. So
but
it's like
that is Her Majesty's opposition is Marxists. And so the alternative to that is Boris Johnson. Now, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of Boris Johnson, but in the next election, I'm probably going to have to vote Conservative because I do not want Labour to get in power the way that they are. And the left it seems to be that we keep on being told about the rise of the far right. Like the far right is coming, guys. It's just rise of fascism everywhere. No one's commenting on the rise of communism. Except for on the left, and then except for on the right, and then we're being told that we're being paranoid.
Yeah, that's what I hate. You talk about it, and I'm a conspiracy theorist. It's like I'm not. I mean, these are all things that sound very much like an authoritarian leftist communist. I'm sorry, you know, and it's like really frustrating. I mean, my parents didn't immigrate from Cuba, from a communist country, for me to then like suffer here. Sorry, like. That's just not going to roll with me. Fuck off. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'll just keep voting right because I do like this country and I don't want to lose all of the like fundamental things that I love about it, like free speech. So, you know, that's kind of where I sit.
Sorry. I was going to say, isn't it interesting how we just went on about, you know, all these things we care about that supersede trans policy for us, right? I don't like the idea, like I said, that we are expected to vote purely on trans policies, especially when, like, I don't even think there are any trans policies to vote on in California anymore. Like, why am I supposed to just only care about being trans, especially when, I mean, here's a little secret, like the trans thing is only really a thing on the internet. Like in my real life, it's irrelevant.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I mean, and I'm part of it too. Like I talk about it on the internet a lot because it's like what I do, but it's also like not really a thing in real life, right?
Absolutely. It's the same with me. Like I'll admit my channel wasn't initially to be a trans politics channel. I was simply using it as a springboard to talk about other issues. But then I kind of felt, well, there isn't really anyone in the UK who's talking about this stuff in the way that I am. So it almost feels like a bit of a moral duty to be covering it. But outside of this, outside of my channel, like it doesn't form a part of my social life at all anymore. I don't hang out with other trans. I've got a couple of friends who are trans, but you know, I'm not friends with them because they are trans. Like I'm friends with them because like they are my friends, because I have a lot more in common with them as people. And all that, you know, I have a job, that I focus on, that I have hobbies that I do. Like I'm obsessed with Disney, I'm obsessed with theme parks, all of this different kind of stuff. Being trans is actually very low on the ballpark. Like I barely think about it outside of my videos. And I feel like in this amazing world of intersectionality, where you need to hold up your cards to say you can talk on something, otherwise it's bigotry. Like I kind of feel like I can flash my privilege card and say, well, I am a tranner, I can speak about this stuff, don't call me transphobic. I mean, of course they still do, but you know, they don't have as much currency as say if it was a cis het white male covering this stuff on a weekly basis. They would say, oh, he's obsessed, he just hates us, he wants to get us all into the concentration camps. But it allows me to talk about it.
I feel the same way. I feel like even though, like I said, being trans is like such an irrelevant aspect of my real life, like, I do feel a duty to talk about it online, because the reality is, like, I don't like the fact that the trans narrative online in the discourse is like either from these like fucking idiots like Cat Black or idiots that, you know, want to run with the Yanivs situation and imply that that means that trans people are pedophiles, right? And it's really those two extremes. And that's why I feel like it's so important that there's voices like that are somewhat in the middle of like, okay, chill, like, yeah, Yaniv is a pedophile, but that doesn't mean trans people are pedophiles. To me, that's a rational thing to say. And, you know, it's sad that it has to be said. And so I do, in a way, see people like Cat Black's argument of like, why should I have to talk about this? But like, again, don't call yourself a fucking trans activist if you're not willing to talk about the hard issues.
Oh, yeah. Well,
but here's
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, the thing is, like, it's not like Yaniv has been the first, like, evil trans person, right?
Oh God,
there's been plenty of more. The problem is that, you know, Jessica Yaniv like highlights like three major issues people have been talking about: women's rights, like trans rights just trumping every right, and then also, what am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something else. But you get what I'm saying? Like there's just a lot that case specifically covers. But I mean, if it was really about calling out every bad, I don't know, like trans person, then we would have been on your ass about all of them. And this is the first one. It's not going to be the last one, but this one is like kind of a big deal. They're going out there just destroying people over their fucking ball sack. So
absolutely. And yeah, I disagree. I just agree, not disagree. I think it's like, it's sad that these activists that we've propped up to sort of speak for us don't have any fucking balls, no pun intended. Like they're like literally I saw a lot of people that were that trans activists and their fans being like, I'm not talking about it because this is a right-wing story, or this is
Jesus fucking Christ,
there's only right-wing sources talking about it. And it's like, okay, do you think you're doing the world any favors by perpetuating this divide? Or do you think maybe it's more important for us to communicate with each other and build bridges between conservatives and the right and trans people? I think the latter is more important. And these people, like asking a lot of these trans activists to speak to conservatives would be like asking them to speak Chinese when they don't speak Chinese. Like it's literally a foreign language to them. They have no idea how to communicate with them. And that's toxic, because the only way we make progress is by communicating.
Yeah, and that I believe there was an experiment on like right-wing people thinking how, you know, trying to answer a question in a way a left-wing person does, and left-wing people answering a question like they thought a right-wing person does, and the right got it right much more often than the left did, because the left doesn't understand what being right-wing is.
Yeah.
Like you say that you're on the right, and they think, well, that means that you hate minorities. And this was a lie that I was told for years. And this is why for such a long time I said it was left wing, because I was told, if you're a conservative, if you're on the right, then you must hate people. You must hate these rights. And I think, no, I don't hate ethnic minorities. I don't hate women. I don't hate trans people. I mean, I'm a fucking tranny, for fuck's sake. But they tell you this because they have no idea what the other side is like. And as soon as you kind of take that red pill, so to speak, it does really open up your eyes. And this is why I think especially like Blaire's channel was kind of very important for me coming out to like my own ideology, because for once, actually seeing a trans person I could relate to who was expressing views that weren't just leftist talking points.
Right.
Like at the time, except Blaire, I believe your channel started around 2016. Like there was nobody else at all. Like it was such a breath of fresh air. And I think now we're seeing a lot more people starting to be open about what their beliefs are. Like, you know, there's people like Ella Grant or Miss London. I think they're both conservative. Like there's a couple of us now, and we're starting to get our voices out there, and it's showing people that actually, no, there is another way to be trans. Like there isn't just following what these parties say or just taking it for granted that the other side is evil. Like I don't believe that the Republican Party is evil. I don't believe that the Conservative Party is evil. They might have some policies that I disagree with. Like the Conservatives in the UK are very, very much nanny states, and they really want to crack down on the internet in a way that even China would be jealous of. Like, that scares me. And
it is terrifying. And just to go back to what you said about like there's more of us speaking out now, like that actually makes me happy because, you know, when I did start, like I was the only one, but like it's made me genuinely so happy to see more come out since then. Like, because it kind of sucks. It like sucks to be the only one. Like it really, really did. So that's why I love your channel. And again, to anyone who came from my social media to this, you're watching this on Rose's channel, make sure you subscribe. Just click it right now. The button's right there. And then also your podcast, Mars. You should talk about your podcast for sure.
Yeah.
You like talk about it right now?
Yeah, plug your podcast.
Like what? Like, okay, yeah. So I have a podcast. Me and my co-host, Smartass, which he goes by that because he remains stealth. And just kind of like going into a little bit of what you said. I know we have to wrap it up soonish, but like I've never been politically, like I hate politics. I've never been into politics. I've always aimlessly voted on what, you know, people around me were saying or because of my identity or whatever the case. And so probably around like 2014 or 13, whenever it was, you know, I got into some law enforcement jobs, which made me think a little bit more logical. Then around the same time also, I think I maybe eventually stumbled across your channel. And so it's like, it became this thing where like, I realized like, I don't need to be voting just because I'm Hispanic or, you know, transsexual or whatever the case. You know, that was stupid. I'm like, there's like all these other issues and policies that I'm completely neglecting because I'm trans, because the LGBT is telling me if I don't, then I'm just going to die or something. Like, so it became ridiculous. And that's when I started to like actually read and look into politics. But I mean, even still, like, I don't consider myself a political expert. There's a lot for me to still learn, but I know that I'm learning way more just by kind of trying to be in the center right more than, you know, far right or far left, which is where I kind of fit. And so then that takes me to, I think like last year, realizing all these trans issues were going on at the same time, like pissed me off. And like I've said this before, the only downside of being a transsexual to me personally is all this bullshit that's going on that makes us look like we're insane or, you know, just incapable of living life without people kind of catering to us. And so that's why I started my podcast with Smartass, because I was frustrated. You know, it sucks. And a lot of it, I think there's a lot more people that feel like this, but a lot of people are scared.
It's natural. There's a balance to everything, right? Like for too long, the conversation was monopolized by like far left trans people. That was the only voices. And that's why I think it's so important that we're out here. If for no other reason, just to provide some balance, because without a balance, it's just going to keep going further and further left. And we're literally at least slowing that down, if not stopping it. We're slowing that down, which I think is so important.
And that's so boring too. Can I just add, like, America's a melting pot. Like, you know, if you like diversity, then why the hell do you have a problem with every right-wing person? I mean, I love the fact that I could sit down at a table with all kinds of people from different ethnicity or religion or, you know, political views, and we could just have a discussion. I mean, why is that so problematic? So I don't know. That's really frustrating to me.
No, I agree, and I'm going to be putting in links to everyone's channels and stuff after the podcast is wrapped up, because of just this. I mean, it was set up on the StreamYard literally because we couldn't get Discord working properly. It was pretty embarrassing. Like, the thing is, it worked. So I streamed it on Friday. That was fine. And then I was on Fake Accents on Monday. That used it. That was fine. And then yesterday, like, we spent about half an hour because Academic Agent is a boomer. So like that took a long time.
Great though.
Sorry?
Isn't StreamYard great though? It's so simple.
Yeah. This is going to be probably what I'm using from now on. Like, this is actually better than Google Hangouts.
Hey, is this free though?
Yes. It's just a website. You don't even download it.
Damn.
Yeah. Okay. Like, I literally made, when we were chatting in the Discord, I literally just made the accounts and did it. It took a minute. Yeah, it's amazing. I think this is probably a good time to kind of wrap everything up now.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, just before I go, I want to give a special thank you to both Blaire and Mars for coming on my channel. Blaire especially, because like, you're someone that I've looked up to for a long time, and like has been one of the reasons why I started my channel in the first place. And it genuinely means a lot for you to appear on this. It really does.
Thank you. It means a lot for you to have me. Like I said, I'm so just like happy that there are voices like you guys out there, like, and that we can be loud together. And like I said, you helped me prep for the debate that I did, which was amazing. So one last time, subscribe to Rose if you're going on my social media. The button's right there. And
I like to think that I played a small part in Yaniv getting arrested, even if it was entirely his own fault. But yeah, so thank you all for watching. Thanks to everyone who sent in a super chat. I've got no idea what the super chats were because they don't appear to show up on Streamlabs. That is something. So like, thank you to everyone who has, and I'm sorry if I haven't read any of them out. I am getting used to all of this. As for the normal content on my channel, Trans Stupid will be coming out at the same time next Tuesday, but I am still working on the next Pillars of the Community. It's on Stefankny, so that should be out in the next some time. I am doing it. I promise, but life. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you again to my guests, and I'll see you all next time.
Thank you, Johnny.
Right. Is it ended?